that and said, listen, before you even think about us, you have to go, you should go bankrupt. It's in your best interest.
So you would actually give advice to some people that, listen, take the fall and you can rebuild?
That's correct. And that's where a good mortgage broker who understands credit comes in as part of your team. Because, I mean, let's be honest, none of us really want to go, I mean, I can do a high level credit look, like search and look and say, yes, you know, this person meets our criteria. Now let's send it off to my mortgage broker. Let's see what he says and how long he thinks it's going to take or she to get them a mortgage, get them approved for a mortgage. I mean, it benefits your mortgage broker because they get the deal now with the investor and they get the deal in 2 to 3 years with the tenant.
There was a question I had in terms of bankruptcy. I know when we have people come knocking on our door, typically I say if you've had a bankruptcy in the last 2 years, we try and shy away from those people. But is there a minimum wage that you would not look at, or even a maximum wage? If someone has a $200,000 job, but they've got no savings, that would almost be a curiosity in itself, correct?
It is, and it all comes back to the story behind what happened. And I mean, you can choose to believe them, but there's a bunch of checks that you can do to make sure that things are kind of what they seem. You can get documents from, we had one case where they were involved in a fraud case. And these people earned $500,000 a year. They had a bunch of rental properties. And once that was done, they sold off all their rental properties to pay out what they owed on this fraud. And they showed us the documentation from the fraud case. So, I mean, it's, okay, well, we believe that. And then they're like, well, we want to buy $1 million house. Okay. So you earn the income. That's fine. And you'll be able to qualify in 2 years. So if you do this, it's this. And they're pretty sophisticated, so they get it.
Now, how are you finding the lenders nowadays? You've been doing this now for 2.5 years or so, so I'm presumably a lot of your earlier tenants are now coming to fruition. Are the lending markets still good out there for these guys?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they've tightened up a bit, but I mean, we're looking at, our goal is to get them to 680 and above credit score, Beacon score. With that, they can easily qualify for CMHC 5-10% down mortgage. So that's what we're basically doing. And then, I mean, on the investor side as well, it's tightening up on the investor side too. So when you used to be able to go out there and get mortgages all day, they're really coming back and saying, well, we had one, they came back and said, you have too much passive income, we're not going to give you a mortgage.
Sorry, too much passive income?
Yes.
That's a new one.
Yeah, you have too many properties that you make too much money off. We're not going to give you a mortgage.
That's a story for another day, but wow, new one on that one. And wow. The other thing that I guess that I was speaking to Michael Anger about this conversation we're going to have, and he's got one question that's burning on his mind. He asked me to put forward out there, and I'm sure some of people listening to this have it as well. Sometimes as an investor, it's really hard to determine what this marketplace is doing in 2 months' time. Nevertheless, 2 or 3 months, 2 or 3 years, out. What happens in the scenario where you buy a $100,000 house, you agree to buy it back for $120 in 2 years' time, and then the foundation of the market kind of gets kicked like we have in the last part of 2008, the first part of 2009, and the person said, yes, I'm going to buy the house for $120, but market value of the house right now is $110. What sort of strategies have you got in place to? That's not good for the renter, and it's not good for the investor either. So, what would happen normally in that scenario?
If they said, yes, I'll buy the property at $120, we will try to qualify them through CMHC, which uses a program called Emily. So hopefully there's nobody from CMHC listening, but they do, it's just a computer assessment as long as it falls within 10%. the market value of the neighborhood, then it's fine. On the other side of that, then we may, as investors, have to hold a second mortgage on that.
Oh, to cover off the difference.
Yes.
Now that also raises the other very interesting question. I on some of the LTOs that I did years ago, at time of fruition, I already had money out on this property, so I turned to them and said, I'm willing to do a vendor take back. Do you find a lot of your investors do that with, or have a wish or desire to do that with some of your renters?
It comes down to the fact that every time I talk to somebody about this, I said, this may be the scenario in 2 to 3 years' time where you might have to hold that, but you might not get your equity profit out. You'll get your initial investment out, so you can go do it, but your equity portion might be stuck in there as a second mortgage.
How do you find your investors? I'm presuming, because you've been doing this now for 2 years, and I know that you had an absolutely outstanding article written about you in the Canadian Real Estate magazine, which I read was greatly beautiful article, and beautiful family picture, by the way. I'm presuming a lot of investors are knocking on your door now, but for the average person out there who maybe wants to do 1 or 2 lease to own per year compared to your, I think you said you've done 16 lease to owns in the last 7 weeks?
Yep.
Of the first 7 weeks of 2009, Mark has done 16 lease to own deals. How would you suggest a lot of the people out there that don't necessarily want to use their own money, but what would you suggest the best way for someone to get into lease to owns? How would they do it? Or do you suggest that they be the one that actually holds the mortgage for the first couple that they do?
It depends. We have people who qualify great for mortgages. We have people who don't need mortgage partners. We have people who have money and can't qualify. Well, it's really 2 questions. The first one is where to find investors, where to go find money. Is network with like-minded people. Get out there. There's a whole bunch of networking events that you can go to meet real estate investors. But any event that you go to, if you have a business card that says real estate investor, probably going to strike up a conversation, especially in this type of market. So, get their email address, get them on a database. As you know, Philip, I send out 2, 3, 4, 5 emails a week. If you send out an email every 2 weeks, just to let them know you're alive, if you start putting deals out there, people respond.
Yeah, and appropriate emails, I guess we should add on to this as well, because I also get my share of annoying emails that I just avoid and delete, make sure the content is there. But one thing I like about, one thing I really like that what you do, Mark, is that when you put an email out there, you give the nice teasers, and they tell all about the deal, and so, basically first come, first serve, just come knock on my door, which, people would be good lessons to learn. You've been doing this now. You've been a professional real estate investor for 5 years, been doing this for 2.5. I know from my personal success in real estate, it's changed my life and it's become a passion. What has it done for you? Help me understand from your personal side of life, your lifestyle, and what you do, some of the changes that you've seen over the last little while. Because there are people out there today that have what I refer to as JOBs, and they're in the prison of 9 to